Your salary has gone up, at least on paper, and yet your life does not feel richer in any meaningful way. The number on the paycheck is larger than it was a few years ago. Your resume looks stronger. Your title may even sound more impressive when you say it out loud. But the strange part is that your financial stress has not disappeared with your income. In many cases, it has simply changed shape. The old anxiety of not earning enough becomes the new anxiety of having more responsibilities, higher fixed costs, larger expectations, and a growing sense that no matter how much progress you make, real wealth keeps moving one step farther away. For millions of middle-class households, this is not a personal failure or a lack of discipline in the simple moral sense people often describe. It is a system of invisible pressures, psychological habits, and financial mechanics that quietly converts rising income into rising consumption, rising obligations, and rising dependence on the next paycheck. Most people are taught to believe that wealth is the natural reward for working hard over time, so the assumption is simple: earn more, save more, invest more, and life steadily improves. That sounds reasonable, and at a surface level, it is true. A rising income does create opportunity. The problem is that income and wealth are not the same thing, and confusing the two is one of the most common financial mistakes in modern middle-class life. Income is a flow. Wealth is a stock. Income is what comes in. Wealth is what stays, compounds, and continues working even when you stop. A person can have a good salary and very little wealth if most of that income is constantly being redirected outward into rent, mortgages, car payments, student loans, lifestyle upgrades, convenience spending, insurance, taxes, subscriptions, and all the small recurring costs that feel harmless in isolation but become enormous when combined. The result is a life that looks more successful from the outside while remaining financially fragile on the inside. This is where the trap begins, because as salary rises, identity usually rises with it. A higher income does not just change what you can afford, it changes what feels normal. The apartment that once seemed perfectly fine starts to feel too small. The used car that once felt practical starts to feel like a signal that you have not fully arrived. The simple vacation turns into a reward you deserve because you have been working hard. The occasional meal out becomes a standard part of life. Upgrades stop feeling like luxuries and begin feeling like corrections. You are not indulging, you tell yourself. You are simply living at the level your effort has earned. This is what makes lifestyle inflation so powerful. It rarely feels reckless. It feels reasonable. It feels proportional. It feels like life finally matching your work. And because it feels justified, it happens without the emotional alarm that usually comes with obviously bad financial decisions. The deeper issue is that many of these upgrades are not one-time expenses. They are recurring commitments. A bigger apartment means higher rent every month. A better neighborhood often means higher transportation, food, and social expectations too. A newer car is not only a car payment, it can mean higher insurance, registration, maintenance standards, and the subtle pressure to maintain a lifestyle that matches the vehicle. Even small conveniences stack into systems. More delivery, more digital subscriptions, more financed purchases, more impulse spending softened by tap to pay and one-click checkout. What changes is not merely spending, but the baseline cost of being you. Once your identity attaches itself to a more expensive version of normal, moving backward feels like failure, even when moving backward would actually strengthen your financial position. This is why salary growth often improves comfort without producing freedom. Comfort and freedom are related, but they are not the same thing. Comfort means your daily life is smoother. Freedom means your future is less dependent on continuous labor. Comfort comes from consumption. Freedom comes from ownership. Comfort can be bought quickly. Freedom is built slowly. And the uncomfortable truth is that a great deal of middle-class financial energy gets directed toward the first, while assuming it is somehow creating the second. But a nicer life is not necessarily a richer life if the nicer life requires your full income to sustain it. When every raise is absorbed by a more expensive standard of living, wealth never gets the chance to form. Let's make this more concrete with simple numbers. Imagine someone earning $55,000 a year who receives raises over several years and eventually reaches $85,000. From a distance, that looks like meaningful progress, and it is. But what happens if their housing rises from $1,200 a month to $1,900? Transportation rises from $350 to $700, food and convenience spending rise from $500 to $950, travel and leisure go from occasional to expected, and the extra income is also taxed at higher marginal rates? Add inflation, employer health costs, social pressure, and a few financed purchases, and much of that increase disappears before it ever becomes capital. On paper, the person is earning $30,000 more. In practice, they may only feel a few $100s more flexible each month, and sometimes not even that. This is why people say things like, "I make more than ever, but somehow I still feel behind." They are not imagining it. Their salary increased, but their surplus did not increase by nearly as much. And surplus is where wealth begins. Not income alone, but surplus. The gap between what comes in and what must go out. That gap is the seed of every future financial option. It becomes the emergency fund that prevents debt during a crisis. It becomes the retirement contribution that compounds over decades. It becomes the brokerage account, the down payment, the margin of safety, the ability to say no to bad jobs, bad timing, and bad luck. Wealth is built from repeatable surplus directed into assets, not from the symbolic size of a paycheck. A household earning $70,000 while consistently preserving and investing 15% may build far more durable wealth than a household earning $120,000 while spending almost everything to maintain an expensive image of success. There is also a psychological dimension that makes this harder than most financial advice admits. Human beings adapt quickly. What once felt extraordinary soon feels ordinary. The first raise feels exciting for a few months, then becomes the new baseline. The same happens with bonuses, better homes, nicer products, improved routines. This process, often called hedonic adaptation, means external upgrades lose emotional impact faster than expected, while the financial obligations tied to them remain. In other words, the pleasure fades, but the payment stays. That is one reason chasing financial satisfaction through lifestyle alone is so unreliable. Your nervous system normalizes the upgrade and starts scanning for the next one, while your balance sheet carries the full memory of every previous decision. Another piece of the puzzle is social comparison. Middle-class life is not lived in a vacuum. People measure themselves against coworkers, neighbors, friends, and increasingly against carefully edited online lifestyles that make everyone else appear more comfortable, more organized, and more affluent than they really are. Financial choices begin to serve emotional and social functions that have little to do with actual wealth creation. A purchase becomes proof that you are progressing. A neighborhood becomes a statement about your competence. A school district becomes a moral decision. A wedding, a holiday, a renovation, a wardrobe, even a phone can quietly become part of an identity competition nobody explicitly agreed to join. The danger is that social comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone living at a level just above yours, which means a salary-based strategy for feeling secure can become an endless treadmill. This is where the broader system comes into view. Most middle-class people are trained from an early age to optimize for earned income rather than asset ownership. Go to school, get credentials, find stable work, earn promotions, increase salary, buy the house, upgrade responsibly, retire eventually. There is nothing inherently wrong with this path, but it is incomplete. It teaches survival within the system more than escape from dependence on it. The economy rewards spending in the present far more visibly than it rewards disciplined investing in the background. Entire industries are built to capture your raises before you can convert them into wealth. Housing markets absorb higher salaries through higher prices. Consumer finance makes expensive purchases feel manageable through monthly payments. Advertising turns status into aspiration. Tax structures favor certain forms of ownership that many people do not access early enough. The system does not need a conspiracy to keep people financially stretched. It only needs incentives that make immediate consumption feel natural and long-term ownership feel distant. Once you see that, a different question begins to matter. Instead of asking, how do I make more money, you begin asking, how much of what I make is actually becoming mine? That is a much more important question because it shifts focus from gross income to retained capital. It reframes progress away from appearances and toward control. Someone earning more every year but owning little is moving faster without necessarily moving forward. Someone building assets, reducing fixed costs, and preserving surplus may appear less impressive while becoming dramatically more secure. This is the identity shift that changes everything. Wealth building does not begin when you feel rich. It begins when you stop using income growth as the main signal of financial success. It begins when you understand that the goal is not to look upgraded, but to become harder to destabilize. That might mean allowing raises to improve your savings rate more than your visible lifestyle. It might mean treating every increase in income as a decision point rather than an invitation. It might mean setting a cap on lifestyle expansion so that part of each raise automatically flows into retirement accounts, index funds, cash reserves, debt reduction, or other productive assets. It might mean learning to tolerate the quiet discomfort of not outwardly displaying every bit of progress you have made. This is not a call to reject enjoyment or live in permanent austerity. Money is meant to support life, not turn life into a spreadsheet. But there is a profound difference between spending from strength and spending from dependency. The first comes after a base of ownership is forming beneath you. The second happens when your lifestyle rises faster than your foundation. One creates optionality, the other creates pressure. The middle class often mistakes pressure for progress because the symbols look so similar from the outside. Better job, better place, better car, better things. Yet real wealth is often invisible at first. It looks like automatic investing, low fixed costs relative to income, patience, liquidity, and years of boring consistency. Historically, this pattern is not new. In different forms, societies have always had classes of people who earned enough to participate in prosperity without accumulating enough ownership to control their future. That space between comfort and security has always been fragile. A recession, illness, layoff, market shock, or family emergency can expose how little wealth actually exists beneath a polished middle-class surface. This is why wealth should be understood not as luxury but as resilience. It is the ability to absorb shocks without financial collapse. It is the ability to make decisions with time on your side. It is the ability to let compounding do some of the work that constant effort is currently doing alone. So the real reason your salary keeps growing but your wealth does not is not simply that you need to earn more. It is that rising income by itself does not defeat the forces working against wealth formation. Inflation absorbs part of it. Taxes redirect part of it. Lifestyle inflation quietly claims more of it. Social comparison distorts the purpose of it. Convenience culture fragments it. Recurring obligations lock it in place. And without a deliberate system that protects surplus and converts it into ownership, higher salary simply finances a more expensive version of dependence. The good news is that once this becomes visible, the path also becomes clearer. Wealth is not built by salary alone, but by the percentage of your life force that you keep, protect, and put to work over time. The paycheck matters, but what matters more is what happens after it arrives. That is where financial identity is revealed. Not in what you can now afford, but in what you are quietly building beneath the surface. And for most people, that is the moment the conversation changes from earning to ownership, from comfort to freedom, and from looking stable to actually becoming stable.